Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the First Generation Identity Alumni Talk brought to you by the Offices of Inclusion and Diversity Engagement and Development and Alumni Relations. My name is Hannah. I'm a cybersecurity analytics and operations major. I'm a junior and I'll be your moderator today. We're pleased to have you join us for this session talking about being a first-generation student. First Generation Day is recognized each year on November 8th, and it was established in 2017 by the Council for Opportunity and Education and the Center for First-Generation Student Success to have a national narrative on first-generation student experiences and outcomes, particularly the barriers facing this population and the support necessary for first-generation students to thrive. November 8th marks the anniversary of the signing of the Higher Education Act of 1965, which created a wide range of initiatives to expand higher access to education for low-income and first-generation students. So first, let's meet the panelists. If you could all go however you guys would want to introduce yourselves briefly, give us your graduation year, major, and what you're currently doing.
I'll get us started here. First and foremost, thank you to the College of IST, to you, Hannah, to everyone here making this possible, and the amazing panelists for this opportunity. My name is Noel Claudio. I am from the Philadelphia area, raised there my entire life, ethnicity-wise. My parents were from Puerto Rico y República Dominicana, so Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. I graduated from the College of IST in 2014, so shout out to the class of 14. And I'm currently right now living in San Francisco, working as a program manager at a big tech company.
Hello, everyone. I'll go next. So I'm Denise. I am also class of 2014, graduated from the College of IST. My major was actually information sciences and technology as well. Born and raised in New Jersey. My parents, and by default, I am from Ghana in West Africa. I'm currently still in Jersey, and likewise, I work at a tech company where I focus on building up business strategy for hardware products.
And it looks like it's my turn. This is James Rowley here. I am a data and detection engineer working at Yahoo. Originally from Minnesota, graduated in 2016 with the IST major, but with the cybersecurity option. So it's been cybersecurity from day one. I now live in Virginia with my wife and our two great dogs. Excited to be here.
Hello, everyone. I am Diana Long. I graduated in 2004. I was actually the second class to graduate, so there was only one major back then. I am currently head of PMO for a private equity firm, so I oversee all of the IT projects, which averages about 50 to 60, about a $7 million budget. And I'm currently based out of New York, and my family is from Guatemala.
Awesome. Thank you for those great introductions. For everyone joining us here today, just some quick housekeeping notes. If you have questions for the panelists, use the Q&A section of Zoom. We'll be checking that regularly and making sure that your questions get answered. And also, Kim dropped the LinkedIn links for all of our panelists, so make sure to connect and expand your network. So now for the first question. What is a common struggle you notice among first-year students, particularly for first-generation students? We can start with you, Diana.
Sure. So I think a common struggle is we don't know where to start, right? There's no roadmap that kind of guides you. For other families, it's experience, and you have people that usher you through the college admission process, here's how you pick your classes process, here's how you speak, like all of that. And oftentimes when you go to a school as big as Penn State, there's just so much information that's readily available to you. You just don't know where to start. So it can be overwhelming. So I think that's a struggle for first gen students. At least that's one that I experienced.
Awesome. Thank you. Denise?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I think especially attending an institution such as Penn State, there are a lot of resources, but it's like, which ones should I use? Like, what's gonna be the smartest thing to do for me? And I think also it's like money as well too. And there's money out there how to get it. So I think just like the navigation is a lot because there's no one you can go to besides the community that you end up building.
Those are great points. James?
Yeah, echoing a lot of what they said. I think also to getting to the school to actually to do the walkthrough to see if that's the school that you even want to go to. That was 17-hour drive that, you know, had to be a coordinated effort with a lot of family members. So just even, you know, getting to the point of even choosing the school and knowing which ones to go to, that accessibility is definitely a struggle in its own right.
Noel?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone just mentioned. And to add on to that, I think when it's your first year in college overall, there's especially what I experienced too, there's a lack of having, you know, mentorship. People have done that before, people to lean on for advice. And a lot of times you kind of go to your like financial advisor or, you know, look at someone in the college to help you with choosing your classes for the next few years. And, you know, it's you need more than that, right? You need people to be in your ear all the time and let you know that yes, you know, it's okay for you to explore in your first year. That's what it's meant to be, but also understand that you have to maintain a great GPA over time, how this is going to impact you in your junior and senior year if you're not making those right adjustments in your freshman and sophomore. So having a mentor, I think, was a big thing that if I were to go back, I wish I would have and have done. But nevertheless, I definitely recommend that for anyone else. And hey, we're all alumni here, right? Like that, it starts with us coming back and giving these tips and advice to everyone else.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. You all mentioned some type of resource that would have been helpful or you guys took advantage of. So if you could expand a little bit on that. So touching on resources that were available to you as a first generation student to make that transition a little bit easier, did you find those helpful? And if not, was there something else that was lacking? We can go backwards. So starting with Noel.
Yeah, I think for me, so I didn't even know I was first generation in my freshman year until after I knew that was even a term to describe what I was feeling, what I was going through. So resources wise, at least at the time that when I was at the college, I truly did not see or know much about like what it was to be first generation. But I will say what helped me a ton was scholarships. It was and that was due to having good grades. It was due to diversity initiatives that the college was amplifying, and I was a proud person to be a part of that. But the other thing too throughout my journey was leveraging the career job resources and websites that were there. Those are super helpful for me to just understand what companies were out there, what they were looking for in terms of requirements during my junior and senior year. But yeah, looking back, I don't recall a ton about first generation. I'm so excited to see what has happened since then. So I think now today, and I'd love to hear from everyone else, it's even better in terms of what a first generation is and what we can do for each other.
Awesome. Thank you. James?
Yeah, I actually want to hit on the point of, you know, not knowing first generation. I think, you know, all of us who are talking today graduated college before they actually made a first generation day. Even it was 2017 is when it became official. We've had since, you know, 65 the ability to tap into things like FAFSA, thinking about diversity and inclusion when it comes into you know, the school. So, you know, resources that, you know, utilized for me coming from a town of like 548 people growing up poor, I had FAFSA, right? Like, I think I always like to say, you know, they're like, oh, what is your parental income? Like, what can your parents contribute? And, you know, the big fat zero was there. And that was like a happy day. I was like, sweet, I got it all, you know? But even going out of state, you know, you still have to, you have to make your wages, so utilizing work study on campus to actually bring in extra income, finding other folks and finding clubs to be a part of. I think those were just kind of like resources just to help with like the mental transition. Minnesota to East Coast kind of style. I definitely was I was a big personality. You could probably hear it in my voice right now. So it was it's a transition in its own. So having those resources really did help. But if we could have had this day enshrined as an actual first gen day before I had graduated, I think there would probably be even more resources. So also excited to see what comes out.
Thank you for sharing that, Denise.
Yes. So once I finally found them, I was trying to go through my memory and see. I have really fond memories of the Fast Start program. And that was a mentorship program that was afforded to me, I want to say my freshman year, that helped me to connect with a lot of folks, gain mentorship, and I guess start to like nurture my inexperienced self into like this new world and the coding of what was going to be expected of me. But I think also it's a mentorship program offered at Penn State. So I don't know how it found me or I found it, one or the other, but I would definitely say for any of the students on the call to try to look that up because they gave lots of resources. Also the Career Center, I think especially because not only I was first gen, but also like first tech in my family, like just navigating that as well too. So staying close to the college and the Career Center, updating like resumes and all that stuff like that. Like I think you're at Penn State, so using like, if I could go back, I don't think I took advantage of like all that was available to me. So even like really honing down and focusing on like, it's something that I do even in my own company now. It's like looking at opportunities and jumping on them because there are a lot available. But I will say finding mentorship programs and the Career Center were very like close to my heart and shaping my career in and out of Penn State.
Thank you. Diana?
Or so I'll echo some of them, like definitely work study and fast for James. Like same for me. I'm starting from zero. And then Denise, I'll also echo you where I was also first tech in my family. So everything I was saying really didn't make sense to anybody. But the ones that were not mentioned that I used were the Multicultural Resource Center that always like tended to be my hub. I was always there. Through them is actually how I found the College of IST when I was trying to declare a major because I was undecided at first. So MRC helped me guide me through there. But also, I joined a sorority my freshman year, Sigma Lambda Gamma, and there is where I found women who were also first generation, but now had a few years experience that could guide me through Penn State specifically. And there were different ranges, right? Anywhere from sophomores all the way through seniors, and even alumni were very helpful. And through one of my sorority sisters, I found the Hispanic Scholarship Fund to get money. And then through them, they worked with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, which gave me my first internship with the Department of Commerce and tech specifically. So that was super helpful. And that's how I learned to network. That's how I learned what networking was, right? Because somebody told me about something and told me to meet with somebody. So that was my first taste of it without actually knowing, but it was, like those women who pushed me and, helped me guide through him. And then also something very simple. I was actually also first tech major in my sorority. So I was always in Buki building. We called it the Bat Cave. And, I was in that computer lab all the time. So they would bring me food, right? And they would, come in and check on me. Even something small like that, I consider a resource because it literally kept me going because I was starving and I'm like, I must work. I have to finish all this. And also my classmates, right? My classmates were my last resource, where I found a small group of guys who were from New York or Philly, like in that area. And we really connected as well. And so as we started to take classes together throughout the years, I tend to also be the only woman or like one of two who were in the classes. So like they looked out for me as well, and like we relied on each other. So I found, different support systems, whether it was financial, through an organization. I'm pretty sure, Denise, I did Fast Start 2 or a similar version through MRC. But really that was the beginning of networking for me, and trying to find what I can with whoever was willing to usher me through anything.
Awesome. That was such a great story. I love hearing all of your guys' advice as well, that I'm taking notes to see what I can also benefit from. But moving on to the next question. Since navigating through college was first, you didn't have anything to fall back on or to reference on, it was a tough journey. How did you manage that transition to college, and more specifically around dealing with your own family dynamics? And what advice could you give to students who might be dealing with similar issues? We can start with Noel.
Yeah, this one is very personal and very tough for me, because it was like what really defined me at Penn State, and in a good way set me off to be who I am today, but also at the same time, thinking back through all the struggles of being the first in your family. There's a lot of family dynamics, first of all, especially if you're an immigrant, where your family members, for me, like in Dominican Republic or in Puerto Rico, were constantly looking at me as the sole person that was going to change the generation for future to come. Like, hey, there's Noel's in college, like, wow, right? Like, what is he going to do? What is he going to become? And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, where your family expecting a lot out of you because you're the first person in those shoes, in that position. And on top of that, I started my journey at Penn State Abington before I transferred to University Park. And in my sophomore year, during October, I ended up losing my father at that time. And for me, it was one or two choices. It was, I could drop out now and be there for my mom and stay at home and see what I was going to do with my life, or I could honor my dad in a way that he wanted, which was to finish school, to graduate, become someone, and be able to then come back and give back to my family. So for me, it was a very tough decision, because I made a decision to transfer from Abington, which is a much smaller campus, to University Park in less than 1 year after losing my father, and I had to leave my younger brother and my mother at home. So the advice that I have for others is do what works best for you. And everyone's story is going to be different, but don't forget, the opportunity you have in front of you to become someone, to become great. And it really is an amazing feeling when you look back at what you're able to accomplish, but it starts with you. So if you need to take time off, you take time off, but never forget the reason you're there to begin with, right? You have an opportunity to do something that's never been done in your family. And trust me, 10 years later, I look back and I'm like, I do it all over again in that same exact way, because it made me who I am.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that wonderful story. James?
Yeah, this one is, I think what's interesting is the diversity that we have on this panel, right? And so I think we come at this question, I think, specifically from very different, but also at the same time entwined in kind of the similar concepts. So for me, I didn't know this before you just said that, Noel, about losing your father. I lost my father at a very young age, and so I always kind of had the personal thought of like, oh, I gotta be there for the family, right? But that was, when I was 10, 11, and 7 years goes by. It's a little bit of a different story, but still growing up again, poor, middle of nowhere. It's not like we didn't have, resources, but, to upend, kind of my life, and go 17 hours away. And that was extremely hard, because personally I was like, oh, I feel guilty. I just whatever's going on at home, like I have nothing I can do to help. But, some of the best advice I got is this is our time, right? This is where you define who you are, and this is where you become the person in which you kind of had you may have not known what you could be, but you could be something, right? And so what for the advice that worked for me is that love and be there for your family in terms of like checking in with them, everything else like that, but you need to separate what's going on at home from what you got going on at college, because you need to be the best you and show up every single day for everything that you got going on. And that little bit of advice of just being able to separate and actively trying to separate that little bit helped me get through my 4 years of college. I went in thinking that I was going to be a nuclear engineer. And here I am as a cybersecurity engineer, right? Like how things change. But, it was because I could focus on me that I was able to find the right places to be and get through college. And now I can travel back home and see family and be a part of, their lives, even though I don't live there in Minnesota anymore. I can be there for the things that matter, right? And so, sometimes you got to take a little bit of you to do a lot more of we. So.
Yes. I would say also my family dynamic was one of support, right? So we weren't necessarily recent immigrants, right? Because my family had already been here for at least 18 years. So they had known what college is and what it could do. And that was definitely a goal that my mom had for me. And I'm the oldest of 5, right? And so I would say my family dynamics was one of support, but it was also lonely because they could not understand. But it was also very supportive because the things that they could support, they did support. And lonely in like, I could try to explain, this assignment was very difficult, and my mom would do her best, but also physically lonely because, like you said, James, that drive there back and forth, right? It's a financial burden, it's a time burden, especially for, family if you have younger siblings at home and you're far away. So I did have friends who also like, oh, come home for Thanksgiving with me. Okay, I'll take the ride with you. But yeah, I would say, if you're dealing with those similar issues, just know that I think your family is rooting for you, right? And they generally want the best. And James, I completely agree with what you said, right? Your mentality has to be, I am here now and I have to show up every day for me, and it's okay to be selfish. And I know with even just our backgrounds that are represented here today, that's very hard, right? Because family and the home dynamics are always back of mind, but you need to do you while you're there, for sure.
And I think lastly, I'll add, because I know we want to keep running on, but I'd say it's definitely important to build a tribe and almost like a pseudo family on campus as well too. I think one of the greatest things that I took away from Penn State outside of the academics is like the friends that I still keep up with today. And I think we were really able to hold each other up during times, and I could confide in them and also could relate to them. So I would say outside of like networking and all the professional things that you need to do, like make sure that you're building a support system, especially since I was far away too. So I saw my family when we packed up to come to Penn State, and then like the holidays when I had to leave. And so through that, you also want to make sure that you have a support system. It's Trauma Tribe.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that wonderful advice. And it's how do I say this? It's wonderful and refreshing to see or to hear those kinds of struggles, because sometimes people might not want to voice their struggles. So hearing this is good to hear. All right, next question. You guys touched a little bit on scholarship opportunities and things like that, but were there any other scholarship opportunities at Penn State that you were aware of, or how did you found other scholarship opportunities? We can start with Diane.
Yeah, I would say for me, it was through the MRC and networking, because the more you get to know professors or the heads of departments or other staff, there may be, like this happened recently, I think with, I forget, somebody I knew, a sibling, but a sibling's friend, but something along the lines, there was a scholarship opportunity. There was, let's say, for example, 5 slots, but only 3 people applied, and it was open and it was about to close. And it was like, hey, I have 2 slots. I know somebody that knows somebody, tell them to apply and they'll get it, right? So that, that I think that networking is one of the biggest, and you start asking around and opening up to even to your trauma tribe, right? And you kind of say, how are you funding your college education, and where are you getting this from, and how did you learn about it? And then also through, I think the colleges directly, they have different programs that are also available, is where I would go.
Thank you. Denise?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Diana said in terms of networking, because some of the scholarships that I got were so random. Like it'll be like a random professional club and it's like, oh, we're going to cover your books. So like, and it's small amounts of money, but it helps. But also I was an RA. I didn't know what that was until I got to school. I was like, oh, you're going to cover room and board? Bet. So I did that. And then I also ended up becoming a TA as well too, and a grading assistant. So I think there's so many opportunities like around, just like really ask and talk to people, get close to your professors, get really close to your college as well too, because sometimes there's money that they want to throw at people that they don't even know how to get it to the right hands. And I think one of the things that I experience sometimes, and what Diana's talking about, I'm like, oh, there's going to be so many people that are applying, I'm not going to apply to that. But then you find out that there's really not, or like basically you don't get the opportunities that you don't go out and seek. So you need to do that. But I will say, I think Gen Z is going to be all right from what I'm seeing with you all.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or even like the College of IST, like everything's different, right? Because if you guys remember, I said I was in second class. So their focus was getting the thing launched, not first gen students in technology that, is probably at the bottom of the list. So a lot of my resources really had to be outside of the college. It just was not there. So I'm happy to see, how much is available now within IST. And so that just, sets up these further other generations to succeed, I think. So that's fantastic.
Thank you. James, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I will say I was horrible at finding scholarships. I also just hate writing like letters, and that's just a personal thing. And so I was horrible with it. However, I also was a person of great fortune in terms of the College of IST, where they have alumni actually fund 2 different types of scholarships for people within the College of IST. So there's one that is a yearly 2,500 or something like that. And then there are folks who've actually set up trusts within the College of IST. And I don't know how I was chosen. I didn't know what the process was like, but all of a sudden one day I was told I was receiving a scholarship from this one scholarship fund from the College of IST. There was a dinner involved, everything else like that. And so I think, probably because of my FAFSA status and everything else like that is probably how that got there. But it was awesome. So, sometimes even in the, even when you're the worst and lazy and everything else like that, your circumstances still can, be there for you in that kind of sense. So that was mine.
Awesome. Thank you. Noel, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I echo a lot of James' story because I also came from a poor family. My dad was a landscaper, my mom a stay-at-home mother. And therefore, in high school, I maintained a pretty good GPA. And when it was time for my freshman year, I was awarded several scholarships from Penn State, many of them to do with financial status. I think the Renaissance Fund is one of them. The Bunton Waller Scholarship is another, on top of like maximum FAFSA and like loan coverage, which was how I was able to essentially afford college throughout. And then here's the caveat, right? Like when you get those scholarships, you don't just get it and it's over. Like you've got to maintain a pretty decent GPA and to continue to receive them throughout your 4 years. And that also was another factor for me and wanting to make sure that I did great in school and then I maintained a high GPA and I was working hard. I just know too many people, fellow first gens as well, who started and had all these scholarships and, you know, something happens or, you know, something personal and they have to drop out and then they lose that aid later on. And then it becomes harder and more challenging financially. So, but I will say, I think like looking back now, I didn't know how many scholarships were available out there. There's so many scholarships that drill down to many things now, like being, you know, first in the tech space, like I am as well, and many here on the panel. And also, you know, your ethnicity as well. It's a big thing, like being an underrepresented minority in technology. There's a lot of help there also. So I encourage everyone to leverage all the Penn State resources, but to also do a little bit of research on what's out there. You'd be very surprised.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say, Hannah, was I didn't know that even if you don't need a scholarship, excuse me, and your education is funded either through grant scholarships or loans, you should apply anyway, because any surplus in your account, you get back as a check from the university, and you can use that on rent, on books, on food, transportation, which I didn't know. So I had applied for this scholarship again, and my friend told me this, and I was like, oh, okay. So I think I only had like whatever, $1,000 balance, and I got a $1,500 check back, which is a lot of money for an undergrad, especially back then. So you should, you know, look at those resources, because honestly, every penny counts.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, those are great resources, and just going out there and putting yourself, applying, not having the fear of getting rejected, but just sending those applications is a great tip. All right, so from my end, it doesn't seem like we have any questions from the panel, from the attendees right now. So I would encourage all the attendees to drop a question if you have anything right now. If not, we can keep moving forward with other questions that we have. Okay. So going back to, well, yeah. So going back to you all being the first one in your family to be in tech and having that path you have to do for yourself. How did you found the major that you wanted to pursue? And tell us about your process of how did you guys end up in their career that you guys are in right now? We can start with Noel.
Great question. The funny story is during high school, I used to watch a lot of Criminal Minds, and I used to focus on Penelope and, you know, the tech girl who was coding all the time and looking at all the screens and FBI surveillance and those type of things. And that made me like really think of, well, I don't know if I'm in physical shape to be considered in a career as an FBI agent, but I definitely like the tech side. That's super cool to be able to use computers in that type of way. So that's really what influenced me to my freshman year to want to pursue like IST. But then funny story is, I think in my junior year, I quickly realized I was not good at programming. And that to me was, I just found out this is not right for me. And then I was so happy to see that IST provided additional options, like the people option technology. And for me, that became a great fit because I love working on business side and tech side, led to a career consulting, led to where I'm at now as a program manager in the social media tech space. But yeah, that's how it started for me. It just watching on TV, and I was like, hey, I want to be cool just like that. And the rest was history.
Awesome. Thank you. James?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this earlier. So I had this like grand idea. So when I was younger, my mom had, or before I think I was even born, my mom had thyroid cancer. One thing you should all know before you're like, oh no, is like it's like the least scariest form of cancer that there is. I think like yes, it's still cancer, so it's still like not great, right? But for some reason that latched onto me, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go do nuclear engineering. I'm gonna do it with pre med. Like I had this like massive big brain idea that was going to lead me to somewhere that I could do, solve cancer. Turns out I bit off more than I could chew my second semester. And so this kind of goes to like Noel's point of how you need to maintain good grades. I actually got a 168 my second semester. I had 15 credits, but 3 of them were 4-credit classes. And I got D's in all of them. And I joke you not, I got D's by 1 question in every single one of them. Had I maybe not done that, like I might be on a different, in a different trajectory right now. So it's amazing how, failure sometimes can lead you to where you actually should have been in the first place. So my uncle, growing up, always had computers, and he always had me build computers with him, tinker with them, everything else like that. In my brain, that was more like, as engineering. But honestly, I was like, oh, there's probably something there, because I was always like the, at home IT tech person. Um, and I kind of just like I was a new student orientation leader the first year that they ever introduced that at Penn State, and that was a great experience. And I met someone there who was in the College of IST, and they were like, "Hey, you definitely should go. Like, you should check it out." I went there, I visited, and like when I tell you that it was at the time a 180 from the how I was treated at the College of Engineering. I'm not kidding. Like they were open arms. They were like, "Hey, how can we help you?" They were trying to, they re-looked at all my credits that I had from doing AP classes and doing post-secondary education option while still in like high school. And they're like, "Hey, you know what? We can get you graduated on time. We can take all these credits." Like they were super accommodating. And on top of that, I found out that everything that they do was like group oriented. What better way to get you ready for the true like work world than have pretty much all of your classes have this group oriented kind of vibe to it. Instantly like fell in love with all aspects of what IST was. And, my best friend and I both actually transferred out of engineering into IST same time. So we kind of did the Pam Pam thing from Step Brothers and, high-fived and got our way through IST. But all that to say is just, you can figure it out. Right. And, and you eventually can look back and laugh at it. At the time, super stressful. Now I'm like, wow, that was a fun little transition, little side story. So yeah.
Thank you. Denise?
Yes. So I'll try to give the short version, but leaving high school, I was convinced that I was going to be a lawyer. So when I got to Penn State, I was double majoring in economics and political science. But knowing lawyers, you can kind of major in anything. And as long as you pass the LSAT, you're going to be good to go. And so I don't know how I landed in the orientation for IST, but I did. And I thought it was really cool. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this instead. I feel like business and tech, because economics was not going anywhere. I loved it from high school. So I was like, business and tech, I think this is going to mesh really well together. And I just thought I was going to be like the most indestructible person when it came to a resume. I was like, I'm going to be able to do anything. And so that really got me excited. Those majors do not mesh well at all. So it was definitely lots of semesters with lots of credits, but no regrets there. And I definitely echo James' point about like the College of IST is just so refreshing from memories of the professors and how willing people were to help. And even the building is just gorgeous. So fun memories there. And then in terms of how the curriculum for IST is, where they forced us to have an internship before we graduated. I think that really set me up for the path to employment. By the time I was a senior, I knew where I was going to work. And so it was really like not as stressful going through the rest of the year. So I interned at Deloitte. I found out what consulting was through the College of IST. And so interned and then started off my career into full-time. But yeah, I feel like I was set up for success in that front. And at least looking back through college, although depending who you ask, maybe sad, I think I was going through it with the mindset of survival. I knew I had nothing to fall back on. And so I knew I needed to be able to make money. And so like whatever I was doing is I wanted to be employable. And so how I built my resume and maybe strategically even other things I was doing, in the back of my head, I wanted to be like impenetrable, at least to employers.
Thank you for sharing that, Diane.
Yeah, I was on survival mode too, Denise. That was it. There was no going back. Yeah, so I found through speaking with a counselor, I went in undecided. And when it came time, she's like, I'm like, I want a career where I'm constantly learning. It's not the same. I feel like a lot of careers, you kind of like rinse and repeat. And she's like, there's this new college, the College of, IST, you want to check it out. So I took whatever that first intro class was, and I loved it. I didn't have any problems like getting through the major and everything, but I will say when I finally got, and then I had my internships, like I said, through the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. And then I did attend a multicultural career fair. I don't know if that was the official title. But that is where I found my second internship through Vanguard. And Vanguard, I interned with them. And before my senior year, I had a full-time offer. So senior year was very, stress-free. So I interned with them once and I had my offer. But, it was like through attending the different events that I was able to make the jump from internship to career. And then career-wise, I started as a software tester, which at that time, I didn't think that the College of IST really did a good job of kind of like preparing you for what technology means in business, right? We don't do technology for the sake of doing technology. So when I actually started as a software tester, I'm like, great, I'm going to find some bugs. But my first 3 months were going to bond trading school and learning how to trade bonds, because the tool that I was going to be testing was a proprietary bond trading tool. And I said, I did not sign up for finance. What the heck is this? But, I reminded myself, oh, Diana, you said you wanted to learn. Like, you're learning now. This is something that you did not pick up at Penn State. And the same holds true even today. Every project I'm on is not something that I've worked on before. I'm exposed to different people. I could do the coding. It was just really lonely. Like, I couldn't talk to anybody. I just did not like being in front of the screen the whole time. So, I made the jump to a business analyst and then Scrum Master, project manager, and now I'm head of PMO. So that's how my career was able to weave through. But it was, I like to talk. I like to meet people, learn different things about them.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Another question I have for you all is, if you have experienced imposter syndrome, how did you overcome it during your college years? You can go backwards. So Diane, if you want to.
Yeah, I would say for sure, because in high school, I did not get any development or coding courses. I didn't know anything about technology except what a computer was. And I knew how to type on a typewriter. Yes, I'm aging myself. And I didn't have a choice. Back to what Denise said, it was survival mode. There was no option for me. So yes, I did experience imposter syndrome, quite a lot as I'm going through the coursework. I would say definitely my first year and a half, like sophomore year, but by junior and senior year, I was confident. Clearly, I was getting through it, and I knew I could do it. And then after that, it kind of washed away. but there, like I said, there was no safety net for me. There was no fallback. I could not go home. It was not an option. So I had to power through it.
Thank you. Denise?
I don't know. The concept of imposter syndrome is always interesting. I do have the experience where sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I definitely experienced that through college. But then it's like back to what we've been talking about with survival. It's like I have to figure it out and I'm going to figure it out. So I think I've almost developed this sort of, I don't want to say delusion, but let's say delusion. It's like I'm going to figure it out and I have to. And so I think that gets me through a lot of things. It's like maybe I don't know how to do it now, but I have the capability to. And so that's what I've stuck to.
Awesome. Thank you. James?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to build off that a little bit because I think, Denise, you're hitting on a point of kind of something that first generation students probably experience maybe more than others, and it's just like the adversity in all aspects of everything, right? And so, generally, if you're a first generation student, if you're first gen college specifically too, right? Like you have found a way. You have pushed through some things that others maybe have not been able to deal with or handle or whatever it may be, right? Because to be first generation, there are many folks on this panel who are first generation in other regards too, and props to them, because I don't know how that transition could have how I could have also dealt with that along with everything else that I dealt with, right? Like I'm inspired by that. So imposter syndrome at times, and I don't want to market it across all of first generation, especially first generation college, for who then graduate college. They are I think a lot of times we've worked our butts off and said, we are meant to be here because of everything that every trial, every tribulation that we've gone through. Like we are owed this in a sense, right? We don't think that the world owes us anything, but we owe ourselves this, and we're in the spot that we need to be. And so I feel like I don't have it as much now when I talk to someone who's really smart about a really specific area, and I try to get into that mindset. Yeah, a little imposter syndrome there when honestly, I'm just being an imposter at that point. I shouldn't even be in that conversation, right? But yeah, that's I think it's different when it comes to first generation, and I don't want to market it for everybody on this panel, but I think we all have a chip on our shoulder in a different way.
Yeah, it's like we got this far. You got to keep going. You should not stop it now.
Thank you. Noel?
I'm going to keep this short because I know we have other questions, but I agree with what everyone just mentioned. Plus one, imposter syndrome is real. I don't necessarily always enjoy the term being called an imposter. I think, you always have an ability to learn something new. But the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of you're the first to do something, the feeling of am I doing the right thing, are people viewing me as productive, and do I belong here, right? Those feelings are real. And to kind of change the angle a little bit, I still experience that today, 10 years in my career and in multiple avenues. I came from a consulting company. I was at Deloitte. I was at Slalom. I did amazing work there and everything. And then I landed my first tech job in San Francisco at Twitter. And then I had many little heart attacks because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm working at a top social media place. I really love this product. I really enjoy this. I used to use this all the time back in college. And then it restarted again of feelings of doubt and uncertainty. And then I had to tell myself, no, I belong here. I made it here. I got the job for a reason. And that even continues to today, right? So it's more about self-realization. You're going to feel that way, and those feelings are okay. They're natural, but also you got to stand up for yourself, and you got to, like everyone said here, tell yourself you made it this far for a reason, right? Continue to climb, prove yourself, but also, be your own brand and your own voice, because you're the person who's going to vouch for your own success the most. So I'll leave everyone with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have a question from one of the attendees, and it's, what advice do you have for faculty and staff members on how to best support first generation students?
I think your time is most valuable, your understanding. I know that there's like office hours where you can come in, but oftentimes we as students see you as the experts, right? Because we don't have exposure yet to a professional work environment at a company. So, anything that you have learned, if you can spend that extra time beyond the coursework, is helpful, because those first gen students will see you as a door that maybe they don't think they can open, or they don't think they can knock on above and beyond. So if you give that friendly, open environment, and it's not like you're going to take a survey, right, and say, hey, I'm here for any first gen students. But being able to open and listen and free yourself up, I think is very valuable.
Thank you. Denise?
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything in addition to that, because I really think it's just about being open and approachable. Of course, with students, sometimes not everyone is gonna come to you, but I think like making yourself as a professor or faculty a resource and someone that people believe that they can come to, the right folks will like trickle into you. Because like Diana said, maybe you're not gonna be like first gen club, but if people know that your door is truly open, you will get folks in.
Thank you. James, do you have anything to add to that?
As if you're faculty or professor, if you're in a class, right, like maybe the first thing is like, are you getting enabled by the college to know who is like first generation on day one, right? Or are you starting that conversation just like, hey, in those introductions, understanding that? Because once you kind of know that, hey, if this person is slipping a little bit, anything else like that, like there's probably something going on where you can be the one to be like, hey, how can I help you help get your grades or anything like back to where they need to be. So just knowing that there is first generation students, first generation anything in your like class, first thing you can do.
Thank you. Noel, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think very quickly, just, embracing, loving, showing patience for the first generation students, trying to reach out to alumni as well to be able to participate in some mentorship. I always enjoy that, to hear from the College of IST and others, Penn Staters who are looking for guidance, and we're stronger together is really what my message is. But we have to, as everyone mentioned, identify who those students are, and let them know that they are not alone. And that's the biggest message for everyone, right? And if I can go back, that's what I would like to know. And in some ways I had that, but like it's even more apparent now that there's an army of first gens out there, and not just at Penn State, but across, the entire country and world. Like, so let's find each other, let's be there for one another.
Awesome. Thank you so much on those thoughts. So I know we're running out of time. We have 5 minutes left, and we have a couple questions in the Q&A. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get through all of them since they're a bit lengthy. But one of them is, you're all well established among the best tech companies. How did you land your current job, and what suggestions do you have to get my foot in the field? Also, what suggestions do you have to get noticed by tech employees or hiring managers? If anyone has an answer.
Yeah, I do. So I do a lot of hiring and interviewing now, and I cannot stress enough how much having a personality and soft skills goes a long way, which stereotypically people who are in technology get labeled as, not social or having those skills, let alone someone who is first gen and you're going for your first, professional job, and you may look or appear or speak a certain way. But having a personality and being sociable and being open, you can't teach that. So the more you get out there and you do talks in front of people, you meet with professors, you talk to people, and you get more practice, it will make you stand out in the crowd.
That's
Agree.
good advice.
I was just going to jump in a little pivot. I know there was another question about like finding your first full-time position. And so I think on that, and to Diana's point about having personality, but then also assuming that you're still in the college, like mock interviews go a long way. So just like learning how to interview well. And so you'll have your personality and you want to get that down pack so people actually like working with you, because sometimes it really does come down to that, especially when you're a first year hire. Like you're almost a blank canvas at a certain point. And so they are going to mold you. So having a good personality, but then also mock interviews and being able to tell your story in a way that's going to resonate with interviewers. And I would also say if you can find a mentor that can help you on like the professional aspect. And so maybe someone who's already in their career, they don't even have to be that much older than you, but LinkedIn is a minefield. There's a lot of people that reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask for advice, and I'm happy to speak with them. And I think people are really willing to speak with people, especially early in their career as well too. So there are people open to give back. I would definitely say also reach out to resources maybe in companies that you're interested in as well too. And more so, they might not always be able to hire you, but they can give advice or maybe look at your resume, because also your resume is like your first foot in the door, regardless of everything. If that's not right, probably no one's going to see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
The other thing I was going to say was read the job descriptions, because titles mean different things at different places, at different companies in different regions of the world. So make sure you read through the exact description. And just because you don't have every single little bullet point, don't let it stop you from applying, right? If you meet half of the criteria, it'll be fine. You know, if you meet 3 points, you apply for it anyway.
I'm going to add one quick thing on what Denise mentioned and Diana, and I think building your brand is very important and key. So definitely don't wait until after you're finished school. Find a way to showcase what you're doing, talk to a crowd, right? If whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on platforms like TikTok, you know, be yourself, be authentic. You can reach out to us for some help and mentorship and all that, but you have a chance to build your brand, and that brand can go a very, very long way. I've seen a lot of students from all across different colleges who are in their freshman, sophomore years are already talking about themselves, what they're learning through college, and expressing it to an audience, which builds those public speaking skills. And recruiters and hiring managers and we're all on platforms like LinkedIn. So definitely building your own brand, I would recommend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I want to add one, and then add, you know, on top of all that's been said, I think one thing that happens is people try to shoot for the stars, try to get the big fish, right? Reality is, with first jobs, they're builders, they're understanders, they're ways in which you figure out where you actually want to go in a career. Even with your internships, I had 2 different internships before I graduated, and it showed me that I did not want to be a Windows like programmer. It showed me that consulting could be really awesome. And so having, you know, going for maybe some of the more little fish in the early goings really can build your skills and build your understanding. So that way you don't, you know, you don't want to fail too soon, but also you're going to have to fail a little bit to get to where you want to go. So start small, build your way up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that's all that we have for today. Thank you for everyone that participated today. We'd like to give a special thank you to all the panelists for taking their time off to be here today. Really appreciate it. And for all the attendees, please look for further information on future identity talks on the IST website. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.